What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing. I just finished up watching Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford, and this was a 12-rounder for the undisputed WBC, WBA, WBO, and IBF Welterweight World Championship. And this fight was Saturday, July 29th from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this fight was broadcasted on Showtime pay-per-view. And in this fight, Terence Crawford cemented himself as the number one pound for pound fighter in boxing as he absolutely dominated what was recognized as another top 3, 4, or even 5 pound for pound fighter in Errol Spence, dominating him, dropping him for a total of 3 times in this fight, getting the the 9th round stoppage victory. What a performance by Terence Crawford. He absolutely surprised me and everyone. I know there were people who were picking Terence Crawford. I was picking Spence by split decision. I saw a lot of people picking Crawford by split decision. But most people, even the guys that were picking Crawford by stoppage, were thinking that this would be a close fight. This was an absolutely amazing performance by Terence Crawford. I'm absolutely shocked. I knew it would be, or I thought it would be really close either way, but Crawford looked phenomenal. And just to break down my scorecard and how the fight was going, I had it 78-71 in favor of Terence Crawford leading up to the stoppage. So the first round was a pretty good round for Errol Spence. He had some body work, was much more active than Crawford, looked pretty good. But then in the second round, this is where the momentum changed. Spence got dropped for the first time in his career. He was lunging forward with some big body shots, then got caught with a 2-1. A big straight left landed for Crawford, followed by a leaping jab that landed flush, dropping Spence for the first time in his career. Then in the third round, this one was a really, really close round. This was the last round I would give to Errol Spence. And the third, I gave it to Spence because he was a bit more active early, but Bud was able to land some good shots later on in the round, so it was a really close round. Then in round number 4, Crawford was just landing big shots on Spence. I mean, he was doing really well. Round number 5 was a pretty competitive round, but Crawford did very well early in the early/mid part of the round, but Spence did land one big left hand late, but I don't think it was enough. But it was a pretty competitive round. Then round number 6 and 7 were big rounds for Terence Crawford. Round number 6, he was landing very heavy shots on Spence, but then the 7th was a massive round, a 10-7 round for Terence Crawford. He dropped Spence again with a counter hook. Spence was coming in again just like the first knockdown to the body. Then Crawford caught him with a sort of hook/uppercut flush, sending him down. Then in the last 5 seconds of the round, Crawford dropped him again with a double hook, landing flush on Spence's face, putting him down for the third time in the fight. Then in round number 8, Crawford was walking down Spence. I mean, we knew a stoppage was looming after that 7th and 8th round. Then in round number 9, Crawford was banging Spence's head around like a bobblehead, hitting him with big shots. Then the referee stepped in and stopped the fight. I see no problem with that stoppage. Spence was sort of disputing it a bit after, but, I mean, he was getting beat up pretty bad. So, with this performance from Terence Crawford, I mean, what is next for him? Definitely, I think he's the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport of boxing. I know Naoya Inoue had that amazing performance over Stephen Fulton, but he didn't have this type of performance over another fighter who was top 5 pound for pound. So Terence Crawford just cemented himself, I think, as the number one fighter in the world. But in terms of what's next for his career, I mean, I think they had a rematch clause for this fight, and they were supposed to have a rematch at 154. That's definitely an option that these two could have a rematch at 154, but this fight was so dominant in favor of Crawford that I don't really know if it's going to happen, but it's definitely an option. But if Crawford doesn't fight Spence in a rematch at 154, maybe we could see him defend his undisputed titles maybe once or maybe even twice at this weight. I mean, I just really don't know. He might actually move up to 154 in his next fight. So, I mean, really, who knows? But obviously, he could take on Spence again in a rematch. But, I mean, we don't really need to see it because it was so dominant. But since there was a rematch clause, I think we might see it. But if not, he might defend his undisputed titles at welterweight once, maybe against someone who is ranked top by either one of the sanctioning bodies. Anyone who's top 3 in those sanctioning bodies he might defend against. But otherwise, I don't really know what could be next for him. Might move up to 154 and fight Spence in a rematch. Might fight Spence at 147 again. Might defend his titles against someone else. I mean, who knows? There's a lot of things that could happen for Crawford next. But as for Errol Spence, there were 2 things that I think could happen. Is that Spence could obviously rematch Crawford, like I said before, at 154 or again at 147. Or we could see Errol Spence move up to 154 immediately and possibly fight someone like a Danny Garcia in a rematch at 154. Maybe something like that could be next for him. Or just someone else who's like top 15, top 10 ranked at 154 pounds. Because even though Errol Spence did lose this fight, he's still one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world. And even though he had a very tough night here, it doesn't take anything away from how well he's fought throughout his entire career and the names he's beaten. So overall, Terence Crawford dominates Errol Spence Jr. and cements himself as the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter, becoming a 2-weight undisputed world champion, dropping Errol Spence a total of 3 times and stopping him in the 9th round to improve to 40-0 with 31 KOs. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.